Ciao friends, and welcome to Simple Italian Cooking. My name is Liz, and I'm so glad you're joining me for this wonderfully easy Italian breakfast dish, which you can actually eat really anytime. So if you're wondering what to do with your zucchini, and you want to do something a little different, maybe you haven't tried before, this is a really, really good recipe. Very flexible, so you don't have to worry about getting exact measurements. So I'm doing kind of a smaller batch today. I don't need to make a lot. If you want the full, 4-person serving bigger batch, I have a link down below where you can go to my website, get exact specific measurements and everything. So I'm going to walk you through this. Feel free to follow along if you're in your kitchen, grab the ingredients, or you can just save it for later. So all you're going to need is some zucchini. I'm going to be using just one zucchini. That's really all I need for this one. You're going to need about a medium onion and a clove of garlic, and you're going to need some egg. So I'm doing 2 eggs for this particular dish, and we're also going to use some romano cheese, which is completely optional. You don't have to use that. It's a nice Italian dish that is very flavorful, and my husband makes it all the time. He loves zucchini and eggs, and there's actually a name for it. It's called cocoselle. And I don't remember what part of Italy this is from, but I do know that my Sicilian mother-in-law made this all the time. You can have it for dinner too. The first thing we're going to do is heat up a medium saute pan, frying pan, and we're going to heat it up to a medium heat, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and add in just a little bit of olive oil. You want to use, if you can, extra virgin. I just use that for like just about everything. So you're going to add about a tablespoon, just enough to kind of coat the bottom. If you need to add more as you go along, nobody's going to complain. That's totally fine. So what we're going to do is, while that's heating up, we're going to go ahead and cut up the onion. And we're going to add the onion first, okay, the onion and the garlic, and I'll explain why. Okay, so I have my onion chopped up, and I just want to explain something here, that I like to chop my onions pretty small, so I dice them. I mean, I don't do them like super, super tiny, but I don't do big chunks of onions for this dish. I want it to cook up quickly, especially if I'm doing it for breakfast. I don't want it to take forever. So, and since I said garlic and onion, I want to add the onion first. And I want to actually make sure that this is nicely spread around in the pan. What we're going to do is we're going to add this onion, and we want to coat that onion with, oops, I missed a whole chunk here, with the olive oil, okay, because we want it to saute, we want it to cook. And again, you want to kind of do it over a medium-high heat. And the reason why we cut the onion up first and cook that is because the onion's going to release some liquid as it cooks down. And we're going to saute this for about, just to let you know, you can expect anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes. And once this is cooking down, that's when I'm going to add the garlic, because I'm doing this at a little bit of a higher temperature, and I don't want the garlic to burn. I don't want it to really get brown either. So that's why I add it while the onion kind of releases, after the onion releases some of its juices, because I still want it to cook for a while, but that extra juice helps keep the garlic from burning. So a little tip for you there. Okay, and while your onion is cooking, and again, it's going to take about 5 to 8 minutes, you want to make sure that the onion is translucent. So, by translucent, that just simply means it's kind of see-through, okay, not opaque. Opaque is when you can't see through something. So while that's doing that, go ahead and chop up your garlic. Now, you can chop up your garlic rough. You can slice your garlic. It's totally up to you. I like to kind of dice my garlic because I want that flavor more throughout. I want to be eating it. If you're going to be serving this to people who aren't maybe fans of garlic, I would recommend slicing the garlic, so that way if they get a piece, they can kind of push it off. So you get the smell and the flavor, a subtle flavor from the garlic, but if they don't want the bigger chunks or they don't want to eat garlic, then you can just they can push that off to the side. So real quick before I forget, because I always forget to do this, is self-promote, right? I am not a self-promoter. Oh my goodness. So anyway, if you like Italian recipes, especially when they're easy and they taste absolutely amazing, then please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, get that notification button, click it, so that way you get notified every time we come out with new videos, and give it a share. Share it with your friends. Make a comment. Tell me, do you make this? Have you ever made this before? Have you ever heard of this, cocozelle? I think it's spelled C-O-C-O-Z-E-L-E, I believe, or E-L-L-E. All right, so this is coming along real nice. Smells nice. Love the smell of onion. If it starts browning, if the onion starts browning, that means you're cooking it too high, because we really don't want a like a Mexican flavor. Like, that's the only thing that comes to my mind, like a grilled flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the garlic. And again, give that garlic a stir because we want it to coat with some of that olive oil. Now, remember, zucchini has a high water content. So when we add the zucchini, the dish is going to get a little more watery as that releases, unless we do it at a much higher temperature. Keep in mind, if you need to add a little bit of olive oil because it's getting too dry in the pan, you can go ahead and do that, but don't do it for the sake of just making sure there's liquid in here, because we're going to get liquid from the zucchini in just a few minutes. Okay, so the next step while the onion is doing its thing is we're going to go ahead and cut up the zucchini and turn the onions down if they are cooking a little too quickly. Okay, or you can prep all your ingredients too, and that's fine. So I'm going to do half moons. The way you do half moons is you take your zucchini and you then, well, I cut it in half, but so you have your zucchini and then you cut it in half lengthwise. This part is your half moon, okay? So when you hear the term half moons, that's what it is. And then what you do is you just simply slice these. And this is to your preferred thickness. So some recipes might say to do it chopped, where you can do it cubes. That's completely fine. If you want to do whole circles, that's fine as well. I am partial to half moons. I just like them, and I think they're easier to eat. And I'm going to go ahead and add the zucchini in because I want to start cooking that. I think the zucchini is a very underrated vegetable. There's so many different types of zucchinis out there. I learned about a zucchini called a Sicilian squash. Sicilian serpent, I think is what it's called. It's actually a squash, not necessarily the zucchini, but anyway, people often refer to it as zucchini. It actually can grow 5 to 6 feet, and it actually kind of is like a vine. People kind of grow it on a trellis, and it'll just dangle down, or in a tree. I learned about it from an interview that I did with an Italian seed company, seeds from Italy, and you can check out the interview that I did. I'll put a link on it below. Fascinating interview about all types of stuff. But there's so many different types of zucchini. I wish it was more readily available where I live. I did not grow a garden this year. I love to grow Italian zucchini. They're just more mild. Right now I'm using, I think it's called Black Beauty. It's just the typical kind you get at the store, which is completely fine. And we often use this a lot. So, especially during off summer months. We're going to let this cook for, probably about 5 or 8 minutes. It depends on how high you have the heat. One thing that you don't want to do necessarily is cover this. You can to help it get a quicker start, but this is not a runny dish where we don't want a ton of moisture in it. So I like to keep the lid off. But I can see the steam coming up as the moisture is being released from the zucchini. So you might be wondering, why am I just using one zucchini? How much will this actually make? This recipe here will be enough for 2 people. And again, it kind of depends on how much. Now, my husband can eat, he will make a huge amount and have it for breakfast and have some leftovers, but then that will satisfy him for most of the day. But when he does that, he makes a lot. I'm making enough for probably about 2 servings, 2 to 3 servings, in my opinion, for a breakfast. If you're doing it where it's going to be like a main meal, I would recommend probably about 1 small zucchini per person is kind of the rule of thumb that I go with a lot of times when preparing the meals. So if you like more onion, add more onion. If you like less garlic, you don't even have to add the garlic, but I mean, that is part of, in my opinion, the recipe and the way that we've cooked it for many years. This is a recipe that you can have throughout the entire year. You don't have to have it just for summer, although I would say it's probably more commonly used in the summer simply because zucchini is more in season. But you can certainly use it any time of year. You can use it, like I said, as a brunch for holidays. And it's nice. And, you know, what's also nice, too, is you can even use it as leftovers or, you know, prepare in advance, cook it, and then heat it up in the oven or just heat it up over a skillet again. So it's been probably about 3 minutes. And just to give you an estimate on cooking time so that you know, some of the real thin ones that I cut are already, they're kind of getting very limp. Some of the thicker ones, not so much yet. So just letting you know how much time to expect to cook. So it's been about 4 minutes now, and the zucchini is, more of the zucchini is beginning to cook down. It's getting a little bit more liquidy. Again, another reason why I don't cover it is because when we serve this dish, I don't want soggy zucchini. I don't want it mushy. That's what we're going to try and avoid here. So you got to cook the zucchini just right, so it's what you'd consider fork tender. Okay, so it's tender, it's not mushy. Some pieces will be more so than others, but I recommend just continue to stir it because that way it cooks more evenly and it really, really helps. Now remember, we got to still add the egg at the end here. I actually think this is a really great dish to teach your kids if you have kids or nieces or nephews, because especially when they're young, it's so simple, it's so easy, and it's healthy, and it's something that they will remember because you really can't go wrong with this recipe. It's so flexible, and they'll remember it as they go through life. It'll be a nice go-to recipe that they can have. I mean, the measurements that I give you are to give you a guideline, because really, you probably hear this so many, especially from Italian people like me, we really don't always go by measurements. But just like when I was learning how to cook, and which is a whole story in and of itself, I needed measurements to get me started. I didn't know what went with what, and too much of this, too little of that. Got to turn this down just a tad, and so it helped me, and that's why I like to give specifics to you. But at the same time, don't let that freeze you up. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cook the egg. So I have 2 beaten eggs here. Again, in the end, whether you do it exactly the way I do or not is completely up to you. What I like to do is a little bit like how they do it with fried rice, is they kind of cook the egg off to the side and then you mix it in. That's what I like to do. But if you want to just put the egg all over everything and cook it, that's fine as well. Really a matter of preference. I like to make sure that my egg is 1,000% cooked. So I like to do it off to the side instead of chancing that it might get caught between some zucchini and that's not really cooking all the way. That's why I do it this way. Again, you're not doing it wrong if you don't do it this way. But I like to cook that zucchini. I like to keep the zucchini off to the side at this point because I'm happy with the texture and the doneness of the zucchini. This is just smelling really, really good. I mean, zucchini, egg, garlic, olive oil, and onion. Can't really go wrong with that. A wonderful Italian dish. All right, I'm just going to let that sit for a little bit and let it cook. Actually, while this is cooking, it's a really good time for me to kind of tell you about some suggestions of how you can modify this recipe and even what you can serve it with. Now, starting with what to serve it with, I gotta tell you, my ideas are pretty limited because I'm not a big breakfast person. But honestly, one of the things that I know go really, really well with this dish are potatoes. So if you do pan-fried potatoes that you have, or you do a baked potato, whatever it may be, that will go really well with this dish. And of course, toast, bread, jam, all of that will go really well. You could do some French toast if you're doing like a big brunch. If you're into meat, you could do some sausage, some bacon. Okay, so at this point, my egg is pretty much done. And I'm going to go ahead and mix it back in at this point with the zucchini. And you don't want to cook. I know I said I like to cook egg 1000% done. But really, you don't want to cook it to where it is so dry that it shrinks to like where you can barely see it. Okay, so real quick at the end, what we're going to be doing, I almost forgot this, we're just going to add some Romano cheese. Now, this is optional. You don't have to do it, okay? But I like to do this. Add a little bit of cheese in there. Again, measurements, I'm just doing a sprinkling of it. But I would probably say maybe about a tablespoon for this type of quantity. Probably more, obviously more if you're doing it. You don't have to do it. And if you don't have Romano, you can use Parmesan. Just make sure it's a good quality. Because, I mean, I've had a lot of store-bought Parmesan out there. And friends, a lot of times it just doesn't have a lot of flavor. I'm sorry if you're a die-hard Parmesan person. Unless you're getting a good quality brand, it doesn't have a lot of flavor oftentimes. So if you buy it in the block, then that's a little different because it's going to be fresher and it's usually a brand that has better quality. Let's go ahead and give this a taste test. See if I've done it justice. So you can add, like when I told you about the potatoes, you can add the potato. You can actually cook this with potatoes. Just cook the potatoes first, cook them off to the side. Cook it in the olive oil. It's like really, really good. It's actually just taking that bite. It's a wonderful summer day. Actually, it's not summer yet, almost summer day outside. And it may sound cheesy, but like the birds were like just chirping really loud when I took that bite. You probably couldn't hear it, but it took me back to when I first started having these type of dishes for breakfast. When we used to visit my husband's family, and they would grab the ingredients from the garden and put all this together. Anyway, just kind of took me back there down memory lane a bit. All right, so I hope that you try this recipe. You now know how to make it. It's called cocozelle, so you can impress all your friends and family. And it's just so basic. I'm sure that different cultures have different variations, but let me know if you've tried it or if you have any of your own tips, variations of this recipe. Just do it in the comments below. Don't forget to give a like. Join my newsletter too, because I send out more recipes like this on a weekly basis, and you're really gonna love them. So, well, thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. Grazie. Ciao.